How's life?
So good, dude.
Yeah?
Very good. You hear me good?
Yeah, I can hear you good.
Nice.
How did you get your start in all of this?
So I've been in the e-commerce space for the last 7 years now.
Really?
Yeah. So
What was your first entry into it?
kind of odd. I was working for a company called Alliance Health. I don't know if you've heard of Alliance Health.
Yeah.
They were the ones that
Of
got
course.
raided by the FBI.
Yeah.
Yep.
Were you there when that happened?
I was there when it all happened.
You were in the office?
Oh yeah, dude. I got personally escorted by one of the FBI agents.
Oh
Yeah.
my gosh.
I happened to be in our CMO's office because he was out of town. And I was just hosting a meeting, and I was standing up in the meeting, and I was in a big corner office. And so the FBI agents thought I was one of the executives. So they just beelined right to me, took my computer, escorted me downstairs.
Wait, I remember this vaguely when it happened. Why did it happen? I can't remember. Is it because it was fine, right? It actually
Everything turned out fine
isn't that weird?
a few years later. But
Yeah,
essentially,
there was actually kind of no reason for it.
essentially what they were so the theory is that one of the bigger pharmaceutical companies like the Johnson & Johnson of the world, those were the people that the Alliance Healths were slightly undercutting.
Mm-hmm.
There's theory that they lobbied, got police to come in, raid everything.
What a world if you can do that.
Oh yeah, well, when you got enough money, man,
That's power, man.
That's big time power. So
it gets raided. You're there. Is it game over at that point? What?
no,
Because it kept going. And
Yeah,
it still
so-
exists, does it not? It still exists, or in some form or another?
it might in
Yeah.
some form, but super minimal,
Yeah.
super minimal, meaning they're probably not growing. They're probably just servicing
Mm-hmm.
customers who have not churned,
Yeah.
So it did not end. It was Zion's Bank comes in and that happens, and Zion Bank hears about it, and that's who we were getting our funding from. And they pull all of our lines of credit, and they're essentially you can't do anything.
Yeah.
So it's a business at that scale. It was a $200 million business, was leaning a lot on that line, and they couldn't, after the first month, we couldn't make payroll essentially. So we had to come in, and they had to lay off 300 people of a 1,000-person company. Just kind of hey, we have to make payroll. And then they laid people off, and then maybe a week or two later, they filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. So Chapter 11 is hey, the government's going to come in and fix this, essentially, fix the problem. So priority number one, all funds go to paying employees.
Mm-hmm.
But contracts, marketing budgets, credit cards, it's all axed. So you're just so I was the director of all digital marketing at the time, and we were spending $2 million a month in marketing, and they essentially said you get $30,000 a month to spend, on pay on PPC, and that's it.
Wow.
So we had a massive team, got pared down, probably 50-60% down. A big part of our marketing team was SEO bloggers. We just had tons of writers. And so it was my CMO was essentially just stick through it, do what you can. And I'm sitting there, I'm well, I'm not the guy actually in the trenches as much. I'm not writing blog articles, And so I started with a friend of mine, a company locally here in Utah called Asher Golf.
Okay.
Yeah. So we're both big golfers. He had an opportunity to start this company and came to me and said, hey, let's do this together. I kind of understand, the operations, the manufacturing, the financial world, the fundraising, the world. And he's you get marketing, why don't we do this together? And so we took, 4 or 5 months and resurrected this brand that we'd purchased and then launched it about 6 months later. And I kind of just did that while I was working at Alliance Health. It was crazy, man.
Did they come in with the windbreakers and stuff?
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
my
Big
gosh.
FBI jackets.
Did they have guns?
They had them on their holsters, but
they
no,
didn't have them out?
I never saw anybody draw anything. I
forgot all about this. Man, that was crazy. I remember that day.
I think that it was funny. I think that the FBI was like shocked. I think that they were expecting to come in and just see a bunch of people sitting on cardboard boxes. Like we were running a super shady operation. But like my marketing team, we had like 20 people on our marketing. I mean, it was a huge company. Our floor alone had like 400 people on it.
Somebody needs to tell that story, the full details of that.
I do it every now and then.
One of
Like if
these
ever I get on a
days.
podcast, somebody will ask me about it, or sometimes
Yeah.
we have a podcast as well. Like we'll
Tell
jump
her,
into
like,
it.
is it the 10%, top 10%? What's the name of your show?
Name of the show is The Unstoppable Marketer.
What was I thinking the top 10%?
So we're a top 10% globally listened to podcast.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So
Okay.
we're just in that kind of.
Yeah. So you go and you do Asher Golf. Is that like an apparel, like golf apparel?
So
or
it
what is
started out as golf gloves.
Okay.
Yep. So think stance socks with gloves.
I think I have one of your gloves.
Nice. Yeah. So Asher Golf, that was like our model. Like our vision was like, okay, Stance took the white and the khaki sock and made socks cool.
And these gloves are like they're cool design.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I have one of these.
So we started with colors, then we added prints to it, and then I stepped down from Asher's kind of like full time day to day in 2019.
Okay.
And around 2019 they launched apparel. So now it's like a full blown apparel company. Still sells golf gloves, but mostly apparel is kind of their like vision and focus. It kind of has to be like your AOV is like $26 with gloves, and it jumps up to $90 to $100 with apparel.
Yeah.
So if you want to scale, that's what you got to do.
What was that like? What was that experience building a brand and building a company like that?
It was amazing. I mean, it was an insane amount of work. I lost, and it was my first step into like the entrepreneurial journey, right? So, and I didn't know how to be like a great dad, a good husband, and like a good business owner.
Sure.
I had no idea how to navigate that. So it was amazing in the sense that I learned so much, and it prepped me to some of these like bigger steps that I've taken in life with my entrepreneurial journey. But it, for 18 months to 2 years, I was not like the best guy in the house, because I was like, dude, hey, my wife, you got to know, I'm doing this for you. I'm doing this for us. We might not go on as many dates. We might not be going to bed together. I might be working till 2 a.m. and waking up at 7. And I just kind of like hoped that they would understand those things, and they did, but everything suffers, right?
They do, in my experience, having gone through this.
Yeah.
They understand, like, you're doing something for us when you leave the house, and like we can see that the lights are still on, and we can, keep the pantry full. But at the same time, where the hell are you?
Totally. and for 18 months I didn't take any salary there.
Yeah.
Right. Either. So it was like you had that plus like we should be at least making more money.
Yeah.
It's like,
like what's going on?
You essentially have lost me.
Yeah.
80% of the time that you used to have me, and we have the same amount of money.
How did you handle that? How did you go through that and come out the other side of it?
My wife's really good at communicating, and she just kind of laid it down. She's like, listen, I know that this is your dream and that this is what you want, but like we got to figure something else out, through this. And I was like, oh, maybe I got to rethink this, maybe I got to rethink this. Maybe this isn't like my end. Like, I think everybody, their first nobody wants the failure. Everybody knows entrepreneurs fail.
Yeah.
Dozens of times, but everybody wants to be that like 0.00001% that the first thing they do, they win.
Yeah.
So I think that was like an eye opener to me to say that, okay, if I want to like figure this out, I might have to change like what my next trajectory is. And at the time I had gotten a really good opportunity to, I had kind of been consulting on the side a little bit from a marketing perspective. And there's a local brand here in Utah called Fawn Design. And they said, hey, we need somebody to build our entire marketing division and structure. Will you just come in and be a partner and a CMO and come do that? And so I said, I can do both, So I went and did the CMO thing, left Alliance Health, kind of did the Asher thing, but it kind of came down to this like piece where, you know, I needed to either sacrifice more to make the Asher thing work and not do this Fawn Design, or I could do this Fawn Design thing, get some different experience. And so I just decided to kind of part ways.
Yeah.
At least from a day-to-day perspective.
Did you put
Asher.
money into Asher, like to get equity and stuff?
No, only sweat.
Yeah.
So didn't have to put any money down. We had somebody come in who had money to kind of back it for us. So there was like a third partner in that.
Yeah.
In fact, I was the third person to be brought into that. Yep. So no, didn't have to put money, just boatloads of time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting when you have family and people in your life who like, you know, you're like, hey, I'm building something really cool there. They're like, yeah, okay.
Yeah, for sure.
But also like, you know, we're right here still.
Yeah, dude. It's crazy. But dude, it was like the best experience for me. Like, like, of course I would have done it different.
Yeah, sure.
If I could have learned that lesson differently, 100% I would have. But it was such a good lesson for me to learn, because like since then I have not a day I've ever sacrificed it.
Yeah.
I've been able to be like, okay, this is priority number one. Now, how do I make my businesses work around this versus how do I make my family life work around my business?
Yeah.
Yeah.
How was the experience at Fawn Design?
Oh, it was amazing. It was really cool. It was, the owners are friends of mine. So I know them. And
who are the owners?
Cole and Jenny Wecker.
Okay.
Yep. So I went to high school with Cole, kind of grew up with him, really, really close buddies with him. And then he married Jenny, and we've all since become friends. And so it was great. They were, at the time, they were kind of in a spot where like she had created a product that nobody had seen in the world, meaning like diaper bags existed, but like fashionable, desirable diaper bags didn't exist. She was the one to do that, right? So, and so anything else that you see today essentially spawned from her and her ideas, right? She was the actual founder of that. And so they had massive success the moment it took off, just skyrocketed, you know, and 7-figure company and doing really, really well. And then they kind of just got to this, you know, this tipping, like the tipping point of like, okay, all the people who we've seen, the Instagram boom and organic reach has really, really helped us. That like early stage influencer marketing really crushed it for them, where they kind of seeded bags and product kind of for free. And but now it's like, okay, now what? Like now, how do I get into retail stores? How do I do bigger collaborations? How do I take my revenue from X to Y? And so that's what I got to do. And so we were able to scale and grow their business, and hired a good sized team. Was able to let the founders kind of step down from the company for a minute, you know. So for I think a year or two, they stepped down completely, and kind of, when I say completely, more as board members, which was awesome for them. I think now they're back in it, working on the business. But it was awesome, dude. It led me to, I mean, everything I've done has led me to what I'm doing today. So,
well, how do you do that? Like, you get something that really takes off. You get a brand, you get a product. Like in their case, it's the stylish diaper bags, which has since been like, there's a lot of companies, even in Utah, who do that now.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which is, you know, a whole different thing. Utah does that type of stuff quite a bit. But how do you, like, once you've like captured a market, how do you grow? Like, what do those conversations must be really interesting. Like, hey, we're doing really well. Here's what's coming in every month. Yeah, we could keep doing this probably forever. Do we grow? Do we like? And in businesses, you know, you can't really just stay stagnant.
Yeah, totally. I mean, the motherhood space there's some difference in the motherhood space. You can and I'll tread lightly with this word. You can stay a little bit stagnant. And the only reason why I say that is because you get churn, right? Yeah. Right? Meaning, every day there's somebody who turns an age who decides to get pregnant. And then even people who are pregnant 2 years later or a year later or 3 years later, get pregnant again, you know, and nobody wants to use the same diaper bag that they had 2 years ago that's been sitting around. And so you've got that ability where you have this kind of like audience that just replenishes itself, but you, at the same time, you also have an audience that disappears,
Yeah.
right? Because eventually there comes a point in time where it's like, well, I'm
Yeah.
too old to have kids. My husband got a vasectomy, whatever it might be,
Mm-hmm.
and you're just not having kids. Where you can't stay stagnant is the innovation part of it,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because eventually you're going to hit a product life cycle. But to answer your question, so a lot of these brands will hit kind of like this like initial TAM, like this, like not their total addressable market, but they'll hit this like market that just like falls in love with them.
Yeah.
You know, for example, it was like younger moms that really, really fell in love with Fawn Design, especially on the West Coast, Utah, California, Arizona, Nevada, like just crushed it in that space, you know? And so if you want to go out and say, hey, like, okay, you've attacked this market, and a lot of times what will happen is they'll attack this market at really low cost. So their cost to acquire customers is extremely low because it's super, super organic, meaning like 40% of our audience, the way they heard about Fawn Design was through another person. So it wasn't through our ads. It wasn't. It was through your wife who told my wife about it, or my wife was shopping in the grocery store and saw somebody wearing this cute bag and said, "Is that a diaper bag? What is it?" You know. So really, oftentimes the way you scale is like you've got to start to now build out a bigger acquisition strategy to start to say, okay, hey, how do we make sure that our returning customer strategy is working really, really well so it can help supplement the loss that we're going to experience? Maybe not loss in overall revenue, but loss in the sense that I'm acquiring customers for next to nothing here. Now I'm acquiring a customer for $30, $40, $60 or whatever that number is. So it's like, how do you make sure you build something that you can get people to return at a decent rate? And then how do you just kind of manage that acquisition so you start to just hit more channels? And so we opened up to do channels. We jumped into the wholesale market. So we got into Nordstrom's and Anthropologie's and really, really went big in those places as well to just start to expand the audiences that don't necessarily shop in the same places that Utah moms or California moms are shopping. How do we get to people in New York?
Yeah.
You know, those kinds of things.
How do you decide on like pricing? Like, hey, we're going to be a premium product versus we're going to be like a mid-tier product versus we're going to be the affordable product?
Yeah. I mean, it really just depends on what you want your brand to be. Our brand, we wanted to be like attainable high end, right? So it was like, and I think a lot of people say that is like, I don't want to be the cheap person. So like, you know, a Walmart wouldn't have been like our target market, but Target could have been.
Yeah.
Right. You know, and so it's like, it's not cheap, but it's attainable.
Yeah.
Meaning that somebody who's got, you know, a $45,000 income could also buy this just as much as somebody with a $200,000 income. They're going to be just as interested.
Yeah.
You know, so we didn't want to be that Louis Vuitton style, but we also didn't want to be that like, I can't even think of now like a cheaper diaper bag, but you know, whatever a cheaper diaper bag name was.
Yeah.
So it really just depends on what you wanted.
It's interesting. Like when you're building that, I wonder, like, did they have any sense for like where they wanted to be in the market when they first started? They're just like, hey, we want to build great diaper bags. Cause I know I'm pretty good friends. I'm actually really good friends with Susan Peterson from Freshly Picked.
Yeah, absolutely.
And when she was doing moccasins, she tells the funniest story because she's the coolest person on earth and she's super honest. Yeah. She's like, I was doing it. I don't know the exact numbers, but she told me once, it might have even been on a podcast, where she was like, hey, I was doing it. We were selling the moccasins for like $20 or whatever, right? Yeah. And I was like, it's not worth it for me to keep selling moccasins, so I'm just going to go up to 40. Yeah. Yeah. And she's like, and then I did that for a while, and then I was like, it's not worth it. I'm going to go up to, like, whatever. I don't know what the exact numbers was, but for her, it was just like, what will I do this for to keep going? Totally. Which isn't exactly what they teach you to do in like Harvard Business School. Right. But also there's actually a lot of intelligence around that. There's really like a lot of like psychologically, like if the consumer's willing to pay that, first of all, holy crap, you're learning a lot of lessons, maybe unintentionally, but there's something really interesting there. Totally. Yeah, dude, to be honest with you, so you mentioned like, that's not what they teach in Harvard. What I've recognized, especially about e-commerce and direct consumer businesses, is 9 times out of 10, it's somebody who doesn't have that degree. Yeah. 9 times out of 10, it's somebody who's just solving a problem. For sure. You know, so for like the Weckers, right? It was like, there are no cute diaper bags that I want to be seen in public with. And I can't afford the bigger one, so I'm going to sew and make one. It was the same thing with Susan. We had Susan on our podcast, and she said the same thing, right? She's like,
I'm just going to make these,
Yeah.
you know, I'm just trying to find ways to make money, you know, and she does it and boom, you know, and now all of a sudden she's like, these are way too cheap. Let me raise
Yeah.
the prices here, you know? So there's definitely a science to it, but I think most people just kind of like,
Yeah.
they just jump into it and toss a number and then they adjust along the way, which I actually like,
Yeah.
you know, rather than kind of getting so caught up in like, let's do all this research to figure out what the right price point is based off of our audience. And it's just like, hey,
Yeah.
just throw something out there, work with it. If you need to decrease it, decrease it. If you need to increase it, increase it. Fawn Design did the same thing. They increased their prices, you know?
That's kind of the beauty of entrepreneurship too. It's like, and the fact that anybody can kind of get in there. It's a very democratizing and meritocratic,
Totally.
profession where like the best is going to win, and the people who are super passionate about it, and the people who are like Susan, and I assume it's probably the same for the Fawn Design folks. It's like, I'm going to make this anyways. I'm just going to go get my sewing machine out and do this and
Totally.
see if other people want it. The interesting thing for me is like how you build a brand and how you build a story around that. Because for me, like that only takes you so far, and then you've got to build like this brand that people can attach themselves to. Branding is such an interesting thing, and there is a science to that.
Yeah.
But everybody kind of does it a little bit differently.
Yeah.
How have you seen like people do it successfully? Like how did they do it successfully? How did you guys do it at Fawn Design?
Fawn Design did it through storytelling. So, you know, you're right. Like stories can go, there's a couple different ways you can go about branding, right? It's like you can go spend a bunch of money and you can hire a team who can design the look and feel of the brand. And that's what most people think a brand is, right? It's the logo, it's the coloring, it's the fonts, it's the presets on my Instagram, you know, it's the packaging, and all that is 100% true. No doubt. It's the taglines, but like that kind of stuff tends to mean nothing when you don't have something bigger attached to that. And to me, it's the story around it, right? So we're in a day and age nowadays. So Fawn Design, back in Fawn Design's time and Freshly Picked, when Freshly Picked started, right? Every year in businesses get more and more saturated, right? It becomes easier and easier for people to start businesses. Manufacturing comes closer and closer to the United States. You get things like Alibaba. You get platforms like TikTok and Instagram who make it so easy to reach people for little to no cost as long as you're good at it. And so competition goes up and up and up. So I think 6-7 years ago, it was okay to just do that part, right? The visual part, and people look at it and like, oh my gosh, that's amazing. That's beautiful. And I aspire to be that. But I think people see through that kind of stuff right now. And people, it's like diaper bags are a dime a dozen. Moccasins are a dime a dozen. Jackets are a dime a dozen. Pants are a dime a dozen. Shoes are a dime a dozen. Like what's the next thing that can get me to say, I'm going to buy from you? And to me, that's where storytelling comes in. Some of the biggest brands right now who are growing and crushing it are mastering the art of the story of why they started, and they lean so much into it, and they just tell it over and over and over again. And what happens is they just end up connecting with people. And when you have the visual side that looks good, when you have the product that obviously wins, right, and it's a good product, and then you can kind of woo people in for this story, then to me, that's how you build brands nowadays.
Who do you think does that well currently? Because obviously Nike's probably the best ever at it, right? Like anybody can be an athlete. You're your own muse, like all that type. Is like everything that's just beautiful. It's like you know, they probably do have classes for about that on Harvard. Who's doing it well now? Yeah,
I mean, I got a couple that I can think of, but to hit on Nike, what's interesting is Nike did all that a long time ago, right? Their stories weren't necessarily with like Phil Knight, right?
Yeah.
Like Shoe Dog didn't come out.
It's a recent.
I mean,
book,
yeah,
right? like 5-6 years ago.
Yeah, exactly. Like, you know, but like Nike was started in like the early 70s or late 70s, early 80s or something like that, you know? But what Nike did really good was they told stories through athletes. So they didn't necessarily tell their story like, yeah, we got gypped in the Olympics because a kid was supposed to wear our shoes and then he didn't wear it, like all the stuff you hear in Shoe Dog. But they were telling their stories through Michael Jordan and, you know, all these like other athletes, which I think is a really, really cool kind of concept when you bring it full circle. And they still do that now. Yeah. One of the brands that I can think of right now who is probably one of my favorite, and they're taking on the chocolate industry. So So like there's like 4 or 5 chocolate brands that pretty much own it. You know,
Yeah.
it's like Hershey's, Mars, Cadbury. I can't remember, you know, and
Sure.
they're all multi-billion-dollar companies, and
Yeah.
nobody has really tried to like break into that world.
Yeah.
There's this company called Midday Squares,
Okay.
and they are a better for you chocolate
Okay.
kind of bar.
Yeah.
And all they do is storytelling. And I think I just saw that they had just sold. They've been in business for a couple of years. I think I saw that they had just sold like their 20 millionth chocolate bar or something like that.
Really?
Yeah. And they're doing it purely through just telling the story of this is how we learned how to manufacture. This is why we started this. Like my husband was really interested in having a sweet after his lunch or dinner, but wanted to do something that was a little more health conscious. And so I started making him these things. And this is how our website got hacked by a porn site and how it almost shut us out of business.
Yeah.
I mean, they just storytell constantly. They're not talking about chocolate probably 50% of the time.
Yeah.
50% of the time, it's just like, hey, this is Clint and
Yeah.
you know.
Sure.
And they are just they're growing like crazy, dude. And they are going to be the 6th player in the chocolate market because they are storytelling only. It's so cool.
That is actually.
You'll have to look them up if you haven't tried it. It's an amazing. That's the other thing is like their product is amazing.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, that's kind of table stakes, right? In
Has
the
to be,
in
yeah.
the direct to consumer space, that you can't go super far with like being great at advertising, being great at like storytelling,
Not anymore.
and
at
your
least.
product just
Yeah.
sucks.
Not anymore.
Yeah, not anymore.
Used to be able to.
Maybe be able to do
Yeah,
it,
but definitely not now.
It's got to be good.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, once again, like I said, competition is so high for direct to consumer, not only because everyone can start businesses nowadays, but also because the same person who's consuming the direct consumer stuff is also consuming content creator stuff.
Yeah.
So now you're competing, like brands are now competing with the content creator economy, right? And so your marketing costs, if you go ask me what Fawn Design's acquisition, or ask me what Asher's acquisition costs were in 2016, dude, it was nuts. It was
Really?
absolutely nutty, dude. I was paying
Like
like
low?
$2
Really?
to sell a glove. Like that was our acquisition cost,
Wow.
right? I could put ads up and not look at them for like 45 days, and I just crush it, dude. Crush it. You know. Now, if you go ask them probably what it is, I guarantee you it's probably in the $30 to $50 range.
Yeah.
You know. So and that's everybody, right?
Yeah.
Everybody's acquisition costs are going up. So if you can't get somebody to return to you, then like you're gonna lose most of the time. There's a handful of businesses that crush with just single custom, one time product alone. But it's hard work. It's super, super hard work to do it. So
What is like that thing that you're describing with the chocolate company? That is Midday Chocolates. Is that what you said it was?
Midday Squares.
Midday Squares.
Yep.
Check them out. They should sponsor this podcast.
Let's
now.
do it.
No,
Yeah,
we haven't sponsored
absolutely.
this podcast. I wonder, like, that's kind of like this new revolution of like building in public, right? What you just described. It's like,
Yeah, absolutely.
here's how we're doing it.
Yeah.
And you become kind of attached to the founders
Yeah.
and the company and the progress and the overall journey as
Yeah.
much as you do the product.
Absolutely.
That's interesting.
Yeah, I think people used to relate a lot more to a logo. That's really cool. I'm really inspired by that. And now it's like, God, I want to just get to know Trevor more. Like, dude, he's a dad, a 3.
Yeah.
Like, oh man, he had marital issues when he was an entrepreneur too. Yeah, like
Yeah.
you just like these little things. Like, oh, he likes Midday Squares, so do
Yeah.
I. It's just like
Yeah.
these little things that just kind of connect you to founders and the people within the company or the athletes of the company, right? And I think relatability is super, super key to win and to stand out. And
Was the
space.
initial kind of revolution in this space Instagram? Or was it Shopify?
I would probably say it's in this like more of the storytelling side of things that we're talking about. I'd probably say it's more TikTok.
Really?
Yeah, because
Well, that's a recent thing, right?
yeah.
Like, was that a thing like in Fawn Design? Wouldn't you have been Instagram mostly?
So Fawn Design started. So Instagram, I call it like the pay to play world.
Yeah.
Right. So it was like 2018. It was May of 2018. I remember like specifically looking at like our analytics and being like, something happened from like April to May, where our organic was bringing in so much money and now it's not. You know, it's like our sessions went this and all of a sudden just went tanked really, really hard. So in the early days, Instagram, pre like big algorithm changes, you could post a post. Like I literally remember it's like, okay, we'd post twice a day and we'd see 2 sales jumps a day, and it'd be at 10 a.m. and it'd be at 7 p.m.
Yeah.
And it was when we would post. And then, and so Instagram was really, really pushed a lot of the aspirational stuff. So like the stuff we did back then was like, let's go to Europe and take pictures in Europe with our diaper bags and people are going to think that's really cool. Or let's go to La Jolla and let's go to these pretty destinations.
Sure.
And that was like super aspirational, but that's what people were like really sucking into and consuming, you know? And then I think TikTok came out in 2019. But really like the revolution of storytelling and building in public happened kind of like halfway through the pandemic.
Yeah.
Right. Because I think mental health played a lot into it as people are sitting at home and they're like, okay, now people aren't going to these pretty destinations anymore. And people weren't really doing that as much as I thought. And I was believing it. And now you get somebody who starts to just be like real and they're like, hey, we're struggling to start a chocolate company and blah, 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 blah. And they're like, that's different. All I've been seeing is pretty pictures and faces. But now I'm just seeing this person who's real raw talking about a journey. And it just like, that in and of itself became a pandemic. And now I think TikTok it's grown so much and now Instagram has changed to that. You're not seeing as much of the pretty pictures on Instagram. And so I think that people are chasing that just like authenticity, you know, relatability a lot more because, you know, everyone else was just kind of like blending in, you know?
How do you do that without faking it though? Like can you fake authenticity on social media? You probably could, right?
I think that in the beginning stages with this, you could.
Yeah.
Because I mean, like you said, like I can't tell you how many people. I remember sitting down in a room full of like really, really big influencers in Utah. So all millions of followers, and we were interviewing them. We were just kind of like, we took them out to lunch and we were talking to them, and I remember one thing they said to me, and they said, "Oh yeah, like 9 times out of 10, I will go to the store and I will buy something and I will keep the receipt and I will keep the tag and I'll do a photo shoot and then I'll just send it back, and I'll go rent something out or and do something." And they just totally curated this situation, and then
interesting,
and then they would sell a lot of those through affiliate links. They'd sell a lot of those products, but they never actually bought it.
Yeah.
And that was a really big way that a lot of influencers were making money back then. And I'm sure still a lot of them do, but now I think a lot of people are starting to see through a lot of that. I think people can sniff out people who are inauthentic a lot more than we used to be able to.
Yeah.
And with every new trend, there's always people who fake it a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was the reason why we started our podcast. I've got a decently sized following on social media, and I started seeing all these people who were copying my stuff.
Sure.
So they'd download my content.
Isn't that weird?
They'd pretend to be me, and they'd get as many followers as me.
Yeah.
I'm sitting here like scraping to get these followers, and they're just like growing like crazy. I'm like, that's not even you.
Yeah.
That's me. So that was one of the biggest reasons why we started podcasts. I'm like, you can't fake. It's easy to fake a picture. It's easy to fake 30 seconds.
Yeah.
But it's hard to fake 45 minutes.
Oh yeah, an actual like authentic conversation. Who is this person? How do I get?
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah, that I think that's fascinating. So is TikTok becoming kind of the main channel these days?
I mean, it's hard. Brands. It's challenging. I think that TikTok has a great amount of reach opportunity. There's a lot of people who are still very fearful of TikTok. A lot of brands I've recognized, like a lot more millennial brands tend to shy away from it, who didn't grow up on building in public as much. Where some of these Gen Z folks, they grew up building in public. When it would have been like, I would have got punched in the face if I would have walked down my high school with a phone like this, facing towards me, and people would have been like, I would have gotten made fun of, and I couldn't have even imagined taking a selfie, but like people in the Gen Z space, like
I
that's
still can't imagine doing any of that stuff.
yeah, people in the Gen Z space, like they grew up with that. That is not a faux pas.
Yeah.
You know? And so I think that Gen Z has taken on to it a lot more, and you're seeing a lot of the Gen Z brands who have like really leaned into TikTok and storytelling. Have found an amazing way to crush it. So TikTok, about a year and a half ago, I think maybe a year ago, hit its like reach was incredible, and then things started to kind of like plateau and regulate a little bit. So I still think there's great opportunity for reach when done right.
Yeah.
But I think it's hard. It's definitely hard. Yeah.
Did Shopify make all of this a lot easier, more attainable?
Oh, Shopify has made it really great for anybody to start their own business, right? I mean, I think Shopify used to have a freemium. They don't anymore. I don't believe they do. But you're paying like $19 for like to get a store up. And then there's applications now. So like, you know, you could start a t-shirt company and have zero inventory and no designs. And, you know, there's applications within Shopify that can just like, okay, I ordered, okay, print on demand, done. So, I mean, yeah, Shopify has made
crazy.
It really awesome, but also challenging for other people because once again, just makes it out for a lot more noise.
Yeah.
You know?
What did you do after you left Fawn Design?
So after I left Fawn Design, my business partner, one of the guys who was actually on the Fawn Design team with me, him and I were kind of consulting on the side. That was actually part of my deal with Fawn Design, was that I can continue to consult and do these things. And so it just the rubber, like what's that saying? It's like rubber hits the road. Like sure. My consulting business started growing so much that it was like, I can no longer do both. So I either have to consult and build this, or I've got to stop and do this. And it would just happen to be the right timing for me and for the brand. So started consulting, and we ended up turning our consulting firm into a full-fledged marketing agency, where we worked strictly with e-commerce businesses and just ran all their performance marketing. So anything paid, TikTok ads, Facebook ads, Instagram, Pinterest, Google, we ran everything and then created everything as well.
How do you do that well? How do you do the paid Instagram ads, the paid stuff well versus like, you know, I'm going to pay X amount of money to have somebody who already has 2 million followers?
Yeah, I mean, it's different nowadays. My answer would have been different 18 months ago than it is right now. I've learned that Facebook has done a really good job. You definitely need to understand the tools, but they're doing a really, really good job at making it so that the algorithm does a lot more work than you need to. Meaning like you need to jump in and be testing this new audience here and this new audience here. It used to be that like, it's like, oh, hey, we narrowed our audience and grew, you know, significantly. Those kinds of things are still necessary. Like you still need to test and do those things, but they don't bring you the dividends that they once used to bring.
Right.
Best media buyers, best agencies, or best in-house media buyers understand their value props. So understand like what the right messaging is. So good at copywriting, good at articulating a problem solution, and then good at creating the content around it. Like that's where like if there's not very many silver bullets in the media buying space, but if there are silver bullets, that's where you're usually going to find them, is in the content that the people are going to consume to take an action.
Do you still run the agency? Yeah,
we still actually own the agency. It's just a small boutique agency that we'll keep for, you know, we've got an amazing team that really, really helps us manage that effectively. And we love our clients. We don't really take on a whole ton of new clients. You know, we do from time to time, but we have just legacy clients who stick with us. And it's
probably
great.
pretty useful with your own thing, right? Like here's what's happening, trying all these various things and applying kind of best principles to your own thing. When did you start Bestie?
So we actually got the idea for Bestie at Fawn Design. So like that's where it was back in like 2019. We were really struggling to attribute where our customers were coming from. Right. You know, back then, pre iOS 14 update that happened with all the privacy stuff, you know, a couple years ago. Now everything under attributes, everything was over attributing. So like my Shopify would say I'm making $1 million in a month. But my Klaviyo, which was my email, would say I'm making 500,000. Facebook would say I'm making 600,000. My SMS was saying I was making 200,000. And then before I knew it, when I'm adding everything up, I'm like, I should be making 1.5 million, but I'm only making $1 million.
Yeah.
So everything's double counting. And so we needed a solution to figure out where people were coming from. And so we were messing around, and I was looking at all of our emails, and I saw that the open rate to our thank you email. So the confirmation email, hey, you just purchased a Zyber bag. Here's your shipping information. That open rate, our normal open rates are like 25%, 30%. That open rate was like 85%. That one email. And I'm like, dude, this is valuable real estate. We should be putting something here, you know? And our click-through rate was like 40% when normally a click-through rate was like 2 to 3%.
Yeah.
So I'm like, this is stupid. Why aren't we doing something with this? And so we just got a free SurveyMonkey account, signed up for it. I wrote 3 questions. Well, first one was, how did you first hear about us? What brought you to purchase today? What website or what tool brought you to purchase today? And how long did you know about us before you bought? Just did those 3 questions, and the responses we got changed the entire trajectory of our entire marketing strategy at Fawn Design. It was like, what? We thought that everyone heard about us on Facebook when 50% of our audience is saying they heard about us from a friend or family member. So how do we double down on a rewards program? You know, or you know, the wheels start ticking. You're like, okay, if the more people, if the more bags I sell means the more bags I sell, should I just spend more money?
Yeah.
Sure enough, we did, and we sell more bags.
Yeah.
You know, and because the other people are selling bags for us, right? They're walking advertisements. So it just changed the trajectory of everything. We stopped spending money in certain places and put that in other places. And it was awesome. And then we ran into the same problem when we, a few years later, when we started our agency, found out that all of our clients were experiencing the same problem. They didn't know who their customer was. They didn't know why they were buying their products. They didn't know how they first heard about them and where they came from and how long. They didn't understand much about their journey.
Yeah.
They had an idea about it. You ask any founder, and any founder will be like, oh yeah, my customer is between ages 25 and 35, and they live in the United States, and their household income is XYZ. I don't know if you've ever seen this, but there's a meme. There's a meme out there that, oh dude, I have to remember who it is. It's one of the old like Kings of England and Ozzy Osbourne, and like it puts them side by side, and it's like both from London, both age this, both income this, both, and it's like, but there's 2 completely different things. And so I think what a lot of brands forgot is they know things about their customer, but they actually didn't know who their customer was and what their journey was. And so, we said we could build this and automate this going through an email. That worked for us when we were kind of just like back of the napkin trying to figure things out on a budget. But we wanted to build something and automate something. So last year we got together and, we sat down, me and my business partner, we sat down and we hired some overseas developers, and that didn't work out. And then we hired some people here, worked better, but didn't quite work out. And then we got our hands on a really awesome senior architect who had experience in the Silicon Slopes area, who helped us build Bestie, and we launched Bestie. Technically, we launched it like November of last year, but I say about January, February of this year, because nobody in the D2C space makes changes over Black Friday and Christmas. And so, but yeah, so we've launched it start of this year. Yeah.
How's it going?
It's amazing.
And this is like a feedback app. So like when somebody orders, they interact with Bestie now, not like a SurveyMonkey or something like that.
Yeah. So, we started with post-purchase surveys. So that's kind of like the like post-purchase surveys is a really hot topic right now. So essentially, rather than, because most surveys that you're going to take from a SurveyMonkey is emailed to you. And email is just, it really isn't very efficient. It's a great marketing channel. I'm not dogging on it at all, but it is very inefficient. I mean, think about in my Trevor Crump at gmail.com account, I've got 17,000 unopened emails. Exactly. Literally, I was looking at that, right? So people miss them. Yeah. People, and if sometimes people see them and they don't click on them, and even when people click on them, then they don't have to click again. Yeah. So it's like there's so many layers. Like the email has to be delivered to me. So spam, like your spam rate's got to be good. 2, I have to see it. 3, I have to then click on or open the email. 3, I have to click in the email, and then 4, I have to take the survey. That's 5. I don't know why I have to. So I'm 5 steps before I'm actually taking that survey. Whereas, when somebody checks out, they're so engaged. They just spent all this money. We can now plop in a survey just right there that looks like it's a part of that page. It looks like it's a native to the customer's website.
Yeah.
And it can ask any question you
Is it just
want.
like a widget, like an embed?
Yeah, essentially looks like that.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, so
That's
just
cool.
really clean. Like I said, it looks just like the website. It says, hey, thank you, Clint.
Mm-hmm.
How did you hear about us? Click.
Yeah.
How long have you known about us? Click. Thank you. And
Yeah.
you're done. And boom, you've got all that data. So it's 5 steps you don't have to go through. So your opt-in rate, your completion rates are so high. You can gather so much more data. And now we're getting ready to release like kind of more of we got post-purchase, now we're pre-purchase stuff.
Yeah.
So people who are on the website, how do we engage with those people and figure out, hey, these people who aren't buying, why not?
Yeah.
So that's kind of something that's coming down the funnel here.
How did you start landing clients for Bestie?
Through content creation, a lot of
Yeah.
content through creation, a lot through our agency was an awesome kind of like, what's that word I'm looking for? Guinea pigs for everything.
Yeah.
So all of our clients started using it and loving it, and it became this daily metric we'd look at with them. Is like, guys, this is where people are saying we're coming from. Let's do this. Let's do that. So that was a big place. Word of mouth. I haven't done any marketing.
Really?
Get a lot of people from our podcast as well.
Yeah, I'm interested in that. Why? What is it about like building your own media company now? I mean, we're sitting in my podcast here, right? Like, what is it about this that like you kind of need to do it now, whereas like before you'd like, man, can I get on like, I mean, I don't even know what you'd be thinking 10, 15 years ago. Like, could I get on like KSL radio or something?
Right,
I have no
yeah.
idea what it would be, but like,
Totally.
man, I'm just going to bypass that completely and talk directly to my community.
Right.
Like the ability for us to do that now is phenomenal.
It's wild.
It's crazy.
Totally.
Yeah, it's crazy. And so was that the thinking behind you? Is like every consumer brand company, I imagine, would have to have some sort of like their own channels, their own, like, rather than like, hey, I'm going to buy ads on a podcast or I'm going to buy ads on a YouTube show or whatever.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm going to be the podcast. I'm going to be the YouTube show.
Yeah. Why not? You know, it's like, why not do both?
Yeah.
Right. That's
Yeah,
what I
yeah,
say
yeah.
to people. It's like, why not go at it organically and go at it paid? Because the beauty of going at things organically is you can retarget all the people who came in organically that didn't buy. And that was an audience you built for free.
Yeah.
Versus if you're just going paid, you're building those because nobody buys the first time.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Like nobody does it, or very few do. So would you rather build up on the organic side and close them with the paid versus building on the paid, and then double paying for all, triple, quadruple paying for them to actually come and purchase? So I think that technology has been awesome to allow us to, like, we wanted to start a podcast 2 years before we did because I thought it was going to be so hard. And then I was so mad at myself because it was the easiest thing I've ever done.
Yeah.
The hardest thing was buying the right mic.
Yeah.
Like, it's
What'd
like,
you go with, the Shure SMB? Or
that's what we have now.
Yeah,
We use
yeah,
Shores now, but we were using some like $20 one from Amazon that probably still to this day, if I was just using that, I'd be 100%
you'd be just fine, yeah.
But we just overthought everything.
Yeah.
But it's like that was so easy for us to do,
Yeah.
and so it's just a smarter thing to do. It's a retargeting audience. It's an audience that you are just building for free.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, like I said, I think at the beginning of this podcast or towards the beginning, it's like we wanted to start a personal brand for me and build a podcast because it just validated everything that we were doing. You know what I mean? It was just it's validation when you sit here for an hour and you talk like my answers to you, like. Anybody who's listening to this knows that I know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Versus like if I was just for 30 seconds be like, oh yeah, you should write blogs and do SEO, and it's like, oh, he read that, or something like that. So
yeah, it's kind of like the new, like, you should publish a book almost.
Yeah.
You know how like it probably is still a cool thing for business people to have books. Because like, oh, you can go speak now. You have like
totally.
these things. But it seems like the podcast is kind of replacing that, where it's like, no, just go interview people and talk to people and talk about what you're doing.
And it's so fun.
Yeah.
Like podcasting is the
Well,
coolest.
you're learning more than even your audience is, right? Like the
Totally.
people you're bringing in,
Yeah.
that's kind of the beauty of it.
It's a blast. The other thing that I read actually was, and I'm going to butcher these numbers, when we were first kind of thinking about a podcast, we're like, okay, we've got short form content down. We need long form. Should we do YouTube videos? That's a lot. I don't know. Should we do blogs? And we're doing these research, all this research and stuff. Should we do a podcast? Podcast was like kind of on the back burner because like that's a lot of work, man.
Yeah.
That's a lot of YouTube. I get that. I can just upload a video.
Sure.
Blog, I just got to type it and create a URL for it. And, and then we're good at marketing, so we can do SEO. And so, but then I started reading and I'm like, there was like 9 billion active blogs out there or something like that, not just blogs, but active blogs. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's insane. But there was only 300,000 like active podcasts.
Yeah. Interesting.
So I think a lot of us think, because we all listen to podcasts now, that's just a secondary medium for us. I think we all probably would think that I would have thought there was 1 billion active podcasts out there, but it is such a small number.
Yeah.
Maybe it was 3 million podcast, but nonetheless, I was shocked with how little podcasts, because most people will start them, but they post once a month. Or
it's hard to be consistent. The hard thing about podcasting
Totally.
is like it's hard to be consistent. It's hard to stay engaging, and keep your audience. Like everybody tries to be like the next Joe Rogan, right?
Right.
Without like understanding, like no, like you just go like speak to your audience.
Yeah.
And you'll be just fine.
100%.
Like not everybody's going to be, the former host of Fear Factor and,
or be able to get the most
have,
interesting
like,
guests in the world.
this incredible
Right.
Rolodex where you can literally talk to anybody, right?
Yeah.
Like it's, it really is interesting the way podcasts can be used, even if you just have like a strong, loyal listenership and viewership.
Totally.
The way, like the value that creates. And that
Yeah.
must have been true for you. That must still be true, right?
Oh yeah. I mean, it's funny. When we started our podcast, we kind of completed the funnel to the content that we were creating. So, I'd get millions of views on my short form content and I wouldn't really see any business or anything come from it. And then we created a podcast, and all of a sudden I'm getting people who are saying, hey, can you do my marketing? I heard your podcast. And it's like, it just completed that funnel, because it's like people get bummed by numbers, right? You'll look at content on social media and you'll look at likes and you'll look at views, and those numbers are oftentimes high for brands. And then you'll go over to like YouTube, like you go to Instagram and TikTok, views are crazy. You go to YouTube, it's like 25 likes, 2,000 views, and you're just like, oh, that's so low. But it's like, no.
Yeah.
That's 2,000 people who are spending an hour watching.
Those are real.
Same thing with podcasts. Oh, I only got 200 downloads. It's like, yeah, but 200 people like have gone to the gone to the to the end to download every one of your podcasts. Like that's crazy. They're listening to you. That means they're a regular listener where they're hearing you every single week. Yeah, it might be 200 of them, but like your conversion rate on
That's
200
so
people
powerful.
are so much higher than your conversion rate on 1 million views.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so. How important is blogging these days, like an SEO and all that type of stuff? Has Google changed their algorithm enough to where like that's not as important, or do you kind of have to do everything? This is I think the challenge for like people who want to like, I'm going to create a brand, sell products. Like actually you have to do 1 million things.
Yeah, it's a good question.
In order to do that.
Dude, it's a good question. And I'm gonna bug some people with this. But I will first say this. We don't do SEO. We just don't do it. In the D2C space, I've made the comment before, like I think that D2C SEO can be snake oily sometimes. The reason being is because most people's purchase cycle in the D2C space it's so quick. It's like less than 7 days for most people, right? Like most people aren't sitting for years before they buy something. Or like in the tech space, it's like I used to run demand gen for Workfront, and our buying cycle was 8 months. Because we were closing $100,000 to $1 million deals. So SEO was awesome for us because it was just like we needed people to be seeing us all the time throughout that journey, because in 8 months a lot can happen, right?
Sure.
10 other competitors could swoop in and take these people. So where SEO works, I think really good in the e-commerce and D2C space is a lot of problem solution stuff, like think Squatty Potty. Like I think that works well there. Hey, let me educate you on why you need to have your feet up while you are going to the bathroom.
Sure.
Or, in the baby space, I think it can work really good. In the CPG space, I think it works really good, especially like if it's like health CPG, right?
Yeah.
So it's like Midday Squares, for example, like it could do good there because they're talking about healthy alternatives to sweets. So, I don't blog. We don't blog.
Yeah.
I'm not saying I should or shouldn't.
Sure.
It's a lot of effort
Yeah.
to stand out and like I said, 9 billion active blogs, I mean, not all in your vertical, whatever vertical it is, but just depends on I think your industry for sure. But I'm not your best. I'm not the biggest fan of SEO. I'm going to put my time and money into maybe content creation on one or two platforms. So just pick the platform you're best at that you like the most. And then I'm going to pick one or two marketing channels that I'm going to put paid media to. Google and Facebook or something like that. Google and Meta. That's kind of how I operate until I hit a certain level. And then I might hire more people to be like, okay, cool. Now that I'm a $50 million company, let's try blogging. Let's try some of this stuff. Let's put more effort into Pinterest. Let's put more effort here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why is Utah so good at this? At the influencing consumer brand. This is a new thing that we're good at it too. I mean, you have like the early people who are way good. I'm thinking of like Rachel Purcell, right? Who like and that was probably started with blogging and, building everything. But like, why are we so good at this? We're really good at it.
Dude, I need to come up with a bet. Like I need to actually dig into that one a little bit more. Cause I was on somebody else's podcast who's based out of Missouri yesterday actually. And he asked me the same question. He's like, what is it about Utah? Like what is in the water with Utah when it comes to entrepreneurship and then just D2C? In
particular, women are great at it here in Utah. They're incredible.
They're awesome at it. Yeah. They're really good at it. I don't know. My comments sometimes are like a little bit more on, like I think that you have an entrepreneurial mindset here in Utah because I do think that the Mormon church like sets up young men and women to be okay with failure at a very early age, at a very impressionable age, right? These people are knocking on doors and being told, get out of my face 24/7. And so they're like, dude, I'll start a window washing business. I don't care if people say no. I just spent 2 years knocking doors, and versus other people who didn't get that experience. So I think that is one way. I don't love that answer sometimes.
Well, even just like culturally, even beyond that, if you didn't like serve a missions for the LDS church, it's like you are ingrained. Like one person can change the entire course of history.
Totally,
just with
it's very true.
Like one person could change one person could like take people from Nauvoo to Utah and create a state. Like that, I think that it's in the culture even beyond.
Yeah.
The mission component, which is a huge component.
Totally. I think the other reason why a lot of women are great at it, and this could partially be like kind of tie into this. I think a lot of women in Utah get married at a younger age, and so a lot of women don't enter the career field. Meaning, like I did, we did the whole 4-year degree, and then I went and worked, and a lot of people do. Don't get me wrong, but I think a lot of women, who take that path of getting married at an earlier age, and maybe initially wanting to be kind of a full-time mom, some of them get itches and they have to get a little bit more creative. Like, hey, I'm a mom and that is my number one priority. I have this other desire that I want to do something. And so I think a lot of women have to just get like they can't go apply on Indeed and go get a job that's going to require them to work from 9 to 5 at a 40. I mean, they can if they want to, but if their primary purpose is to still be a mom and not to have a nanny and all that kind of stuff, that option changes. So I think they're just required to think different. Yeah. Can I be a blogger? Could I be an influencer? Oh, I'm good at sewing. Yeah. Could I create a diaper bag company? I'm good at sewing. Could I create moccasins? You know, I'm good at sewing. Could I create kids' clothing? You know, or my mom's good at sewing. Could she teach me? You know, so I just think sometimes women can have to be a little bit more crafty.
Yeah, there's something about Utah just generally, like we're getting really good at building great consumer brands that are becoming like world renowned. Like Traeger Traeger's a good example. Like, look at this brand that Jeremy's created, right?
It's wild.
And like he pulls it from like the backwoods of Oregon to buys it, brings it to Utah, and creates like a movement. Like it's Cotopaxi's a good example. Freshly picked.
Kizik right now. Right?
Kizik. That's what I wanted to talk to you about. Kizik.
Yeah.
Kizik is a monster,
dude.
How is he doing that? How are they doing that?
I mean,
'cause that's one that I think could surpass every brand we just named.
Oh, and I think it's going to.
Yeah.
You know, Traeger's hard. Yeah. Traeger's hard because their returning customer is insane. Yeah. Right.
And you have a brilliant, like maybe the best CEO in the state.
Well, not only that, it's like you've got an amazing product and you've got people, it's a culture. Like smoking is a culture.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean?
It's a lifestyle. I
used to live in Dallas, dude.
Everybody have one?
I lived in Dallas in 2006.
Okay.
And I was door-to-door sales. I was knocking doors, right? And we would go to this. It's the biggest swap meet in America. It's a 2-mile long swap meet in like the heart of Dallas. And we go to it every Saturday, and you could literally be there all day. And like a mile of it was people just smoking meats. And it was this movement. And at that time, they didn't have smokers, so everybody built their own. So in order to smoke meat, you had to build your own smoker because it just didn't exist.
Yeah.
So when you have a culture of people who are just doing this, and then you're like, oh, actually, we just made this like 1,000 times easier for you, and come be a part of our like community. Yeah. You know, they've got thousands of ambassadors that they're running at any given time, and
the app changes things.
The app,
here's all the recipes. Like just start your Traeger on the app, go for a hike. 2 hours later, you can come back. Yeah. Have your meal. Like all that. Like by the way, and he's just a genius.
Yeah.
Jeremy's a
I've never met him before,
genius.
But he's he's definitely on my list.
I'll vouch for him.
He's definitely on my list of people I'd love to jam with one day because my lifetime value as a Traeger customer is massive right now. So and I'm not alone, right?
Well, and it's an incredible business too because you got the hardware, which is the grill itself, and then you've got the pellets.
Yeah,
I'm buying. Always going to need the pellets.
I'm buying pellets every 3 months.
Yeah.
From these guys.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah. So but back to Kizik. Kizik is they're just solving a problem. They've got Unreal technology, and they're also solving massive problems. You know, and that's where they started was problem solving, and now they're trying to build a brand around it as well, right? So the problem was just like, hey, hands-free shoes. Mm-hmm. So I think in the beginning, and obviously I can't speak for them because I'm not on their team, but I've talked to them enough and heard things and just observed things enough that it's like, hey, initially it's like, hey, we're getting people who have back problems and, you know, older people and kids who, you know, don't want to tie their shoes.
Yeah, when I had Monty on this podcast or another podcast I was doing, I don't even know, like 3 years ago. That was the pitch.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
that was exactly the pitch.
Yeah, exactly. I met them in Vegas. I actually met him and Alex MacArthur in Vegas. I was speaking at a conference down there, and they came to me and they were talking to me about it, and I was like, oh, this is cool, I guess, you know. Yeah. But now they're like getting into the brand side of things, which I think is going to be really, really interesting to see. Right? I mean, you're kind of seeing it now where they're creating shoes that are cool. I just bought a pair today.
Cool. I just bought a pair today too.
Did you buy the puffs?
The puffs. We both bought that. We both bought it today, man.
Dude, those puffs were so cool.
How could you not buy the puffs?
I know. And it was
the brand collaboration with like the marshmallow. Oh my god.
What in the world?
It's genius.
I texted Brett Swenson.
That's so fun. I literally bought that an hour before I came in there.
Yeah, I probably bought it. I brought it right when I saw it from Alex's LinkedIn post. Is that how you saw it?
I think so too. Yeah, I think even that.
So I text Brett. I'm like, dude, how could I not buy these?
Yeah.
And he's like, hey, Alex wasn't supposed to share that today. It's supposed to launch tomorrow. So, but yeah, I'm so excited to see what they're doing now because they've solved a problem. Now they're entering into the brand space as well, which will be really cool.
And they're great. They're great designed shoes. Like they have that one, I think it's the Roamer, which is probably what that puff one is based off of, which is like, remember when Yeezys were all the craze?
Totally.
Like it's like that, but like super comfortable, super attainable. Yeah. It's really, and they just opened a store, right?
Yes, yeah.
Like an actual like
fashion
brick and mortar
place,
store,
right?
Something like that.
Yeah,
yeah.
It's cool, and like, dude, you got a team of like Monty is a genius, right? In a different world,
for sure.
But here, right? He's figured out how to translate it here.
Yeah.
But then you got Alex MacArthur who came from Purple. You've got Brett who came from Purple. You got a handful of guys who came from Purple, and now they've got people. I think they just hired their lead designer is the Hoka woman who I can't remember. I think in design. But I mean, they're just creating a massive team that is just going to crush it. I think you got board members who sit on Nike. So I mean,
no, yeah. When I interviewed him, it's so interesting because I've never even thought about this, and now that we're talking about it, I don't like 3-4 years ago, right? And I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Like you got like this kind of like niche like shoe thing.
Yeah.
And it's like for back pain. I like that. And then it's just exploded into like, again, like kind of a movement.
Yeah. Well,
this like interesting.
And it was crazy. Like a year after they did it, it was funny because when I first heard it, I'm like, yeah, those are cool shoes, I guess, but I would see how my grandpa would want that more than me. And then all of a sudden I heard, I saw like a press release from Nike and they had just licensed to Nike. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
And then from there it's just been like, you know, and they're doing some really cool stuff. I'm really
Who else
excited.
do you think's doing good in the direct to consumer space, particularly here in Utah?
Mixers is one that I am just like, what Jess Toulson's doing over there, I think is incredible. One, she's doing something amazing with the team she has, where they just want to be a part of what they're doing. She's solving a really taboo problem with women's hormones. That's
this
really
is the
cool.
supplement drink, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
And she's I interviewed somebody on my podcast, a company called Bruce Bolt. I think they're based in Austin, and it's baseball gloves. And they're $100+ million company for baseball gloves. They're just crushing it.
Crazy.
And I had the head of marketing on the podcast, and I just said, tell me what's going on here. You know, like, just like, what? Give me the spiel. I'm shocked, you know, that you guys are crushing it. I mean, the gloves are cool. Everything's cool. And he said, we won because we didn't build a community. We hijacked a community.
Interesting.
We found a community that was already so massive and dedicated. It's why Traeger won.
Yeah.
Traeger did not build a smoking community.
Yeah.
Traeger hijacked the smoking community, right? Bruce Bolt, same thing. Their community was travel baseball players. So kids whose parents are so dedicated to get them to D1 college/pro level, they're traveling all around the world. So if you live in Utah, you're not living in Utah in November, December, January, February, March, right? You're in Arizona, you're in California, you're in Florida. So these people have the money and the means. And so that's who they market to. They don't market to my son who's just a little leaguer.
Right.
They're marketing to travel ball community, just die hard community. And Mixers has found that community too, right? It's women who, you know, every woman has a period.
Sure.
And for the most part, people tease and joke about, oh, it's that time of the month, you know, and most people don't talk about it. And she just kind of like one day was like, hey, you guys have a bad period? And the people are like, I do.
Yeah.
You know, it's come to find out that most women do, you know? And so she just found, you know, has this community, and now she's shedding light on it and doing some really, really cool things. I think that that's going to be one of the bigger brands in Utah. It is growing as one of the bigger brands in Utah. I think that's great. I think Clean Simple Eats is a really cool brand right now. That's a creator started business. So JJ and Erica Peterson.
Okay.
Yep. They were kind of, he was fitness. He was a fitness guru. She was like a health food guru, and they just combined sources, and I think they're doing awesome. That's great to see. There's another CPG brand here called Just Ingredients that's doing awesome.
Wait, what is CPG? I don't know if I know.
Consumer product goods. CPG is essentially like consumables. Consumable product goods. Yeah. So those are some of the bigger ones, kind of like off the top of my head, that are doing some cool stuff right now.
What's the future for Bestie? How are you going to grow this thing?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. Right now we're working on a lot of collaborations with, you know, our goal is just to shed more insight into the customer journey, right? There's so many people who don't really know their customer. And especially, like I said, a lot of e-commerce businesses, that's our kind of like target audience is e-commerce businesses. A lot of e-commerce companies start because they had a problem.
Yeah.
Right. So it's oftentimes not the Harvard business. Let me do some focus groups and research and go out to China. You know, it's kind of like, I stumbled into this because I had this problem, or a friend of mine had a problem, or my wife or my husband had a problem. I want to fix it. And I'm just passionate about it, and they made it work. And as much as they've done amazing work, there's also just little things that they're like, God, I thought I've known my customer, but maybe I don't know if I know my customer well enough to get it to that next level, you know? And so we are just on a mission to just be the like next level customer insights tool for the direct to consumer e-commerce space. And so, we're working on some amazing collaborations with a lot of really cool tech companies. We're working with some amazing big brands, Kizik, one of those, to help them get more insights about their customer, and the data that they're seeing is so cool. But
I was going to say, you have like an opportunity to be like the Qualtrics for the D2C space.
Yeah, I say that all the time to people. I mean, Qualtrics is such a, they've done so many incredible things, and obviously they've sold, and they're worth billions of dollars. So it's,
Ryan just keeps like selling it and selling it again.
I know, I want to sell my businesses over and over again and make more money every time I do it.
It's pretty incredible.
But it's just, so it's hard to say, hey, we're going to be this, but it's cool. Like, that's what I tell people. It's like, just think Qualtrics, but for e-commerce. You know, that's kind of what we're working on. And
what competitors do you have in this space? I mean, is this this seems like it might be a pretty nascent space.
It's definitely, there's definitely competitors, but not a ton. Yeah. There's two big competitors that in the post-purchase survey world own, I mean, they still don't even own a fraction of the market, you know? But there's a couple people that are in our same space, but to be honest with you, in a nascent space like this, like you said, I actually like competitors because
it's validating.
People need to educate, right? And now it's like you just have a choice between us now, you know, and we're doing some stuff that I think are making us stand out and bigger and better. So it's like, hey, listen, I want those guys to grow a ton, because what's going to happen is they're just going to educate the market for me. And one day their customers are going to see what we're doing versus what they're doing. And there's a good chance that they might like us more.
So is the idea like, hey, we're going to start with like the surveys, the pre-purchase and post-purchase surveys, but then build a platform around like the entire journey and about everything you want to know about your customer and the sales cycles.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's how do we take the qualitative data side of things, right? You got quantitative data, which is more the number side. You got qualitative, which is more of the, this is what I said side of things, you know, and how do we find ways to mix those together? How do we own the qualitative, mix it with the quantitative, and be able to spit out, you know, more information about your customer to help you grow and succeed?
How do you know whether they're telling the truth or not?
You don't. I mean,
I keep thinking about that. It's like, hey, I found this, like a friend referred me, and I'm like,
well,
I wonder if that's true.
Yeah. So, I mean, dude, this is the most common thing about surveys. So it's like, surveys are not an effective way to get data. And it's like, hey, you're right to a point, right? But it's more effective than not.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
I imagine most.
Yeah. The most effective way is to sit down with somebody and be like, hey, Clint, why did you buy this? You know, why did you buy that watch?
Yeah.
Let's go into the history of, okay, why do you like watches? But like, that costs a ton of money, takes a ton of time, right? It's almost an impossible thing to do.
Yeah.
You know, so what we've done with Bestie is we have on our board, we've got somebody who is a PhD economic professor who understands statistical significance. Surveys are his jam. And so he has created with our developing architects and the engineer side to create placeholders in place to say, okay, hey, how do we filter out as much bad data as possible? You know, so people who answer a question way too quick, we get rid of that kind of stuff. You know, the other thing that you've that you know is great about statistical significance is you're not going to get everybody who's going to answer that question wrong. So you might have a few people who are like, oh, I saw this here, you know, but if you're getting 60% of the people who are saying it, it's like, I have something here.
Yeah.
Whether it's 40% or 70%, that's a significant number. So I'm going to do
political polling.
I'm going to do something about that. Yep. You can randomize questions as well so that people aren't just always selecting the top one or the bottom one or the middle one or whatever. And then the other thing that we do is, what was I going to say? Lost my train of thought.
Just around the randomizing questions.
Yeah, we're randomizing questions. We filter out the other thing is a big thing that people say is like, what if they don't remember, you know?
Yeah.
And it's like, I don't actually know if I care about the exact. I care about what impressed them the most, personally. So if they're saying that it was an ad from Meta, even though it might have been a friend, that ad from Meta was more impressionable than the friend.
Yeah.
So could be the wrong data, but it's going to be data that's going to help us move the needle into focusing on the things that impress people the most.
Have you guys raised money?
Nope.
Interesting. So you're just bootstrapping it.
Yep.
And is the agency's probably kicking off some cash to put it in?
Yeah, agency self-funded the whole thing. Yeah.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
That's a great model. At some point, do you plan on raising money, or what's
we're going through that kind of right now. Yep.
Yeah.
So we're kind of having those discussions right now. Talking to some VCs, talking to some angels to try to decide, what's the gas we want to really, really pour on this, and how do we want to go about do it, and who do we want to answer to? Yeah. So that's really what we're going through right now.
Who do you want to answer to?
Yeah, exactly.
Are you having fun?
Oh, dude, it's a blast.
That's cool.
It's a lot of work.
Yeah.
Tech is so different than running brands and services. You know, tech is different, and it's a fun different for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's fun. You can scale it quick.
Yeah, and if you can do it right, it's worth a lot more money than your multiples are much higher in those spaces. So.
Right. Thanks for coming in, man.
Well, dude, thank
Seriously,
you. This has been awesome.
Super valuable.
Yeah.
Everybody should check it out. It's bestieapp.co, right?
Nailed it.
Boom. Okay.
Nailed it.
Thanks, man.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it, dude.
Yeah, of course.